Let's talk about Amaraica. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and I have subscriptions to pretty much every streaming service. One that I think is actually bubbled to the surface as my favorite is HBO Max. I pay for a subscription, and it has the variety of the mainstream stuff I like, television, but also they have really leaned into some amazing independent films of late. We did a watch party with the filmmakers behind Lupe, and I am fortunate today to have the director of Amaraica, director Tim Sparks, is here with me on the Film Threat Podcast. Tim, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Chris. I'm a big fan of the show.
Oh, I appreciate it. Your film is really remarkable. I'm ecstatic that it's on HBO Max because that means it's going to get some level of exposure it might not have gotten if it was a straight to VOD release. HBO Max, obviously, a lot of subscribers. It's going to be exposed to a lot of people. It is about illegal immigration and the human side of that story. You know, when we hear the stories of kids in cages, it's not visualized for us because we see so little of it. There have been so few photographs that have even been allowed to have been released. Your film delves right into that with the story of a family, a hardworking guy with a woman he loves who has his baby, and they just want to work and stay in America. And you show the human side of the story. I will say it's parts of the film I found to be somewhat horrific because I think what you did is you visualize the things that are only spoken about in the media. Tell me, it's obviously the movie was inspired by our current, debacle, which is, I don't care where you stand politically, neither side of the aisle has solved this in a humane way. It still remains unresolved, but tell me what led to the journey to getting this film made. It's obviously inspired by the current situation at the border, but tell me what led you there, and also like how you told this like very human story. There's I feel like all sides are represented so well in this. I like that it didn't seem like you landed in any sort of particular political place. You just showed the human sides of all sides of the equation, but what led you there?
Well, what led me there ultimately was a personal relationship that I have and have had for 10 years now. Kind of opened my eyes to the undocumented immigration population in the US, and through this relationship that I have, I was opened up to the much broader set of relationships. So walking a mile in their shoes just through relationship really obviously provoked me to deep empathy. But at the same time, it really convicted me of like, look, this situation is actually pretty hopeless. And my film, as you mentioned, I'm not taking political sides in the film. It's more of a slice of life, walking a mile in their shoes. But honestly, the systemic trappings of the undocumented being here, working here, everyone loves their gardener, everyone loves their roofer, everyone loves these type of folks. Except when it comes into the political arena, we all seem to have these polarizing opinions. And so I thought, through my experience, I said, hey, I have a unique angle here through these relationships that I want to kind of convey into a movie that moves past the polarizing, what do you think about this kind of people, and just says, hey, let's walk a mile in their shoes. And if we put ourselves in that position, what will we do at the end of this story? And you've seen it, Chris, and we can talk about parts of the film, but I leave it up to the audience in the end to really come to their own conclusions about what's going on with this type of people.
Well, this is what you did so well, is that you humanized this story, right? It's a story that everyone is familiar with, but the way that you humanized it, and also you're not telling, this is what I see in a lot of, in particular, mostly Hollywood movies, is they want a specific agenda to be pushed. So they just sort of hit the nail on the head in a way that is kind of off-putting. It's like, you don't do that in this film. This is my preferred way to see it, is let me come to my own conclusions, tell the human side. I will say that the last, I mean, we don't have to get into it too much, but I would say like the last 20 minutes of the movie I found to be horrifying, because there's just, and all you're doing is showing what we've all heard about, right? The kids in cages. Well, what does that look like? What does that physically look like? The kids with these, they're not even blankets they're these like foil things, right? That one would use in an emergency situation, right? And it's horrific. It's horrific. We've only seen glimpses that have leaked out, and you took, inspired by those images, just showed it. Here it is. This is how these kids are treated. This is what happens to the parents. And you know, without any sort of political commentary. Now it's just going to show it to you, you know, and I think you did an amazing job. And I will say also, like, I don't know if there's any like notable cast in it, but the performances were incredible. Everything was very understated. I mean, it's like the best of an indie movie, right? It's like, it just feels real. So tell me how you were able to bring that together with the cast and just show this very real, almost, I mean, parts of it almost feel kind of like documentary like. Yeah. I mean that as a compliment, because it's just fly on the wall, like here's what's happening. And it's just humanized. You're on this journey. Tell me how you were able to bring that cast together and bring that sense of reality.
Yeah, so in terms of the cast, I have a wonderful producer. I have several wonderful producers, but one of which, her name is Elpidia Carrillo, who's a wonderful actress herself, and her and I have done other projects together, and we're personal friends. So when I had the script developed, I reached out to Elpidia, who comes from Mexico originally, LA based now. And I just said, hey, what do you think? And she was immediately gripped by the narrative and said, hey, we've got to reach into Mexico, find the authentic, the real version of this person, someone who can speak enough English to be dangerous, but not speak it in this crisp manner. And you really feel that they themselves are this immigrant who has a mixed match of English and Spanish. So she was able to tap me into some of her contacts and a casting agency down in Mexico City. We looked at a dozen for each of the lead roles, and we're really very happy with Aldo Verástegui and Karina Lechuga, who we settled on. And settle is not the right word. They're fantastic actors, and they're just on the brink of becoming known themselves. I mean, their performances, as you said, are stellar. In terms of the authentic tapestry by which we filmed, that was something very important to me and the DP, Rene Villar-Rios, who's Chilean and grew up in Sweden, and who has also dealt with his own immigration issues in multiple countries. We really went into where we filmed this movie was literally in the neighborhoods that this class of people's living in. I mean, so we really got into their world. The house that they live in the film is a real home of an undocumented in this, so we really wanted to keep it docu-style, because we're not trying to tell some high level, film. We're trying to tell the human side of it. And this is how they're living. And we don't want to bastardize that by getting too Hollywood with the production value. So
yeah, it really is effective. I mean, if you're going to tell this story, you're not going to be building sets and making it, this big budget, or it's like, oh, I recognize that actor, or that casting unknowns or relative unknowns. I think that the performances are great. There's just a reality to it. There's I like when Steven Soderbergh does that too, where he'll cast someone as like, this is just a real person. And I think part of like I've talked to directors about this too. I think part of the secret to really good acting is just not acting. Right. It's like, and there's an authenticity to it that runs through your whole film, and other directors have been able to do that. And I just find that to be a much more effective way than this sort of Hollywood over the topness going for the performance, which just there's a falseness to that. I think audiences are less receptive to that now and more receptive to the style that you used on your film, which is an authenticity for those final scenes. Like, if we could talk, maybe not necessarily spoiler wise, I know people watching or listening to this don't like that. You need to see the film on HBO. It's on HBO Max right now. That final part, I think you know what I'm talking about, where you see the kids. Mm-hmm. Obviously research went into that, putting those scenes together. And here's what's interesting, and a choice that I'm sure was conscious that you made, is you don't just show it quick, you linger on it for a while, and you show a baby in a cage, and then what's happening, and like some of the, and like, it's not a thing that's just sort of in passing, we're just going to show this. It's like, no, you spend some time there. It's very unsettling. Mm-hmm. Tell me about how you put those scenes together. I'm sure some amount of research was put in, but it's not dissimilar to the images that have leaked or we have been shown of those circumstances.
Yeah. So we filmed, when we were filming this, actually, we filmed it back in 2018. For those of who've already forgotten, I mean, back when we were filming this movie, media coverage of this topic, child separation at the border, was as prevalent as COVID-19 coverage is today. I mean, it didn't last that long, but I mean, it was in the mainstream for several months. So it was a good time for us to be pulling a lot of the behind the scene images that were leaking and capitalizing on mainstream media having their feed of this. So we did take a lot of that research into account, some investigative journalism reports that we were able to tap into. But then again, we're making a film, even though it's a docu-style film, we wanted to put a little bit of emphasis on things that some may say, hey, that's, are you really sure it really looks like that? And I think I made a choice and in some of those scenes to say, you know what, even if this is hyper real, I'm underscoring something that I don't really care if they're kept in this type of cage or that type of cage. That's besides the point here. The point is, this is a human being. This is an infant child. This is inhumane no matter what their bed looks like. They're away from their mother and father. And what really disturbed me, and they may have corrected this some now, there was no tracking system for the government to link up parents with children. So you had estimates of, at the time, 1,500 or more children disappearing in the system, 2+ year waiting lists to be reunited with parents who were let back across the border, their kids still in detainment. I mean, it was just horrific. So long-winded answer there. We did a lot of research, but we also made some creative choices that fit our story and underscored what we see as the inhumane aspect of this law on our books.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific, and the way that you went about it, I think, was completely the right choice to just humanize this story. I'm hoping that because the film is on HBO Max, that gives a lot of people access now to see the film and check it out. I'm hoping that it gets featured. I hope people watching or listening to this, it's top of mind now. You probably already have HBO Max, so an easy one to add to your playlist. and whatnot to favorite like. Or the only thing I don't like about HBO Max is the user interface. The UI that's a nitpick. Okay, it's not as good as like Netflix maybe has the best UI, and HBO Max, they need to work on that. But how did you get it there to HBO Max? Like, just for the filmmakers watching or listening, like, can you tell us like the journey to getting it there? Obviously you had a champion there that helped to get it onto the platform, right? Yep. Like, I'm, I'm hoping that because it's on HBO Max, it'll get more attention than it would if it came out on VOD. But can you tell me, because I'm seeing more and more indies end up on HBO Max. This is a good thing, like, so what was that journey like in getting it getting it to their attention? I think that's an achievement unto itself, and also a testament to the strength of the film.
Thank you. It was certainly a daunting task, as we've stated. Wonderful actors, great cast, all that's there, but we don't have any name talent, name stars. I'm not a name, so just getting the film into a platform like this is a daunting task. And I'm very blessed to have another wonderful producer, Tom Muska, who's been in this industry for several decades. And many folks have seen his famous hit Stand and Deliver back in the 80s that was nominated for, or the actors were nominated for Academy Awards. It's an old classic. So we developed the film, finished editing everything in summer of 19. I think we were out pushing it out to market. It just fell right on its face. I couldn't get anyone to open the door. So we started putting in festivals, had a decent festival run, but none of the festivals I really wanted to get into, to be frank. But I shouldn't downplay the festivals I was in. I'm very grateful for them. One of which, very important, the HBO New York Latino Film Festival. Okay. And so we were showcased in that festival, and we won Best U.S. Narrative or Best U.S. Feature. And after winning that, about this time last year, we had already approached HBO, but it was crickets. And then kind of after winning that festival, we recirculated back around, and through Tom, who I mentioned, who had a previous existing relationship with the acquisitions, the head of acquisitions there, was able to get us a view, and ultimately we landed where we did. And I got to give him the credit.
Well, I'm glad that it gotten that attention, and it's good to hear that film festivals can still have that kind of impact. I know that, like, man, I just feel like being a struggling filmmaker, right? As yourself, I make films as well. It's God, it's just a lot of failure. It's just a lot of like, we didn't get into this festival, we got into this one, won something here, nothing happened there. It's just a matter of like never giving up. I mean, you say the movie was, made in 2018, and it's taken now to 2021 to get it out there. I think all this pandemic nonsense, I'm sure, had something to do with it.
It slowed us down a little bit, but
yeah, everybody, I think, it's sort of like, it paused the world for a moment, but I'm so happy that it made it there. I was not aware of this festival, HBO Latino.
It's really called the New York Latino Film Festival.
New York Latino Film Festival.
It's a great festival, and HBO at the time was like the key sponsor, and their name was. Now I think it's the Warner Media HBO's, or the Warner Media Latino Film Festival. But it's a great festival. They do a great display in the Bronx, and it's run by some really great people. So I highly recommend, if you fall into the themes of, like my film does, a Hispanic theme, or even underprivileged themes, it's a great festival to check out.
Yeah, I feel like you have to kind of look at like what festival like fits the film, right?
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
it's, doc or horror or, some genre film, there's a festival out there that will, champion your movie. You got to sift through. Don't set your sights only on Sundance, right?
Right.
That's a pipe dream and that's great. And why not roll the dice? But it doesn't stop there. It does not stop there. And it's a matter of just believing in your film. And the timeliness of this could not be better. So I really hope that people discover it and check it out, because it really is. It's the story that you don't see, right? The news likes to build up things in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And the way you did it was just show, like, here's the people and here is what's happening. A direct story of a family and how they're torn apart by this crisis, and which is not getting the attention that it deserves. And by attention, I mean action.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and that's why we made the film. And I mention this everywhere I go. It's like, look, I'm not really trying to make political statements. Some who watch it think I am, and that's fine. That's the subjectivity of film. But really, it's to move way past the veil of political bias or politics. It's to move into the human element by which we can all relate. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your background is. If you can get into the human element of the story, you're going to find your heart being pulled, no matter what you think politically. And that's the thing about the film, right? It's kind of a slice of life film at first. One of the biggest problems I've had is it's like, watch it to the end, dude. Don't give up on it, right? Because it's indie and there's no star pulling you to the end, but it's heavy loaded in the end, right? And once we hit that climactic moment, it just, the next 20, 30 minutes just is like, that's the movie, right? That's the reality. So
yeah, well, but it's all that setup that really pays off, right? It's here is this, like, slice of life, and then going to, like, and here's the human cost. Tim, thank you so much for joining me on the Film Threat podcast. And Amaraica is now on HBO Max. See it. And you're going to be moved. It's just really a remarkable film, and I'm glad that it's getting some attention. Tim, thank you so much.
Heck yeah, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.